So I'd like now to hand over to one of the experts in this field, Joel Ray, who's head of consultancy at Transport Intelligence, and he's going to talk to us around some other aspects of this area.
I think probably very quickly explain a little bit about Transport Intelligence and what we do so you get an understanding of where we come from on this topic. We're a specialist research and analysis company focusing purely on the global logistics, express and freight forwarding sectors. We're very global. We have offices in the UK, in the US and in China. And our main products are industry sector reports that anybody can purchase, bespoke consultancy and research, online intelligence portals. We run conferences, we train companies, and everything we do is focused purely on logistics, express, freight forwarding. In the last couple of years, we've undertaken a number of e-commerce related projects. As you can see here, for property development companies, estate agents, as well as for the multi-channel retailers themselves. And we've also recently launched a series of e-commerce related logistics reports, North America, Asia Pacific, and Europe. And from researching these topics and going through our general research processes, we find that most of the intelligence and information out there on e-commerce tends to focus on the growth and the size of on internet sales, which Steve has just gone through, as well as the last mile delivery element. There's very little exists on the logistics requirements of multi-channel retailers and pure e-retailers and how these differ from a traditional bricks and mortar style distribution network. And this is the reason various companies, including these, have asked us to look into this for them. There's no denying that the sales on the internet are very important and have changed the way that consumers purchase and the retail landscape. There are many, many different estimates of the growth, the size of the market. Steve's provided some. There's some here. It's most developed in the developed markets, such as the UK, which is leading the way, where some industry commentators suggest that the online retailers are currently running about 20%. And we can see here M&S and John Lewis, whose online sales represent 15 and 25% of their sales respectively, seems to back that up. But as you can see, if you can see, it's very small, apologies. And the chart below, the UK is well ahead of the rest of the market, even in Europe. And it's also ahead of the US market, although being slightly smaller. I thought that what would be good would be to share some of the findings of the studies that we've undertaken in recent years with you, which have focused more on the development of logistics systems, solutions, networks for multi-channel retailers and pure e-retailers as well. Now, this hasn't been a particularly easy switch for a lot of companies. You could argue that for the pure retailers, the Amazons and the like, it's been a little bit easier because they've had no legacy distribution networks to try and utilize, to adapt, switch systems over. They've been able to develop their own systems from scratch, specifically designed to feed the online world. E-fulfillment centers tend to have a higher labor requirement than traditional store-based distribution centers, and labor costs therefore are often one of the major factors companies look at when designing the facilities and looking at strategies for locating where they should be. Through many interviews with different types of multi-channel retailers, pure e-retailers, manufacturers that sell direct to consumers via their websites, and logistics companies as well, we've spoken to these companies, and there is no one-size-fits-all solution that's been developed yet. As you can see here, we said there's no current blueprint for an ideal logistics solution, logistics facility designed for an e-commerce operation. Every retailer, multi-channel, pure e-retailer, develops their own different strategies and adopts a very different approach to this. As I said, companies such as Amazon, they develop their own systems that include quite unique picking areas of many mezzanine floors, low-level shelving for manual operators to pick single-item goods that are then moved onto conveyor belt systems where the products are moved onto manual packing areas for dispatch. And they also tend to have quite wide open, high eaves areas for larger furniture, heavier products as well. As you said there, smaller businesses carry out their fulfillment in their retail premises until such a time that this becomes too large and they have to find an alternative solution for this. This is a grey area at the moment. There are some companies providing these services, but they're obviously not sizable enough to be attractive to the larger 3PLs. And a number of multi-channel retailers, as their volumes become sufficient, they will develop dedicated e-retail, e-fulfillment centres, or they may keep the online sales in the same facilities that they use to feed their store networks. Historically, a store-based distribution network will site their main distribution centre somewhere in the Midlands, in the centre of the country, and this allows them to feed their stores, their store network, on an overnight basis the next day. These locations tend to be more expensive. The labour in these areas are more expensive, so aren't necessarily the best solution for an e-fulfillment centre. And this allows the e-retailers and the multi-channel retailers to locate facilities in cheaper areas, cheaper land, cheaper lease areas, and where there's a greater level of available labour. There are a number of key factors that affect why a company will locate a distribution centre in a certain area. Initially, they'll look at their existing distribution network. Is there spare capacity in that network to house, even temporarily, online sales, a very fast-growing element of the market? Is there a corporate policy? Does the company insist that there's minimization of stock and they don't want to duplicate stock in a number of different facilities? Labour, as I said previously, very important factor. A lot of companies will, and Amazon is one of these, will look for cheaper areas where there's maybe a higher level of unemployment, where they can source an available and willing labour force at a lower cost. Some companies may site a e-fulfillment centre closer to their suppliers, providing a greater level of flexibility and reducing inbound logistics costs. And the last one on this bullet point, local support. This is one that shouldn't be ignored. It can be very important to some companies. If a local authority specifically wants to attract an e-fulfillment centre, which has a higher staffing element than a traditional distribution centre, then they can provide incentives, that we call them, so financial incentives to set up a fulfillment centre within their region. And this is the approach that Amazon took and was a major factor in them developing a facility in South Wales. So if the incentives and the benefits outweigh the additional cost to line haul and trunk the goods to a parcel company central depot, then this can be an attractive option. We asked the question when we undertook these studies, is it important to locate a distribution centre, an e-fulfillment centre, close to a parcel company's central depot? And the answer was no. It's very easy for companies to trunk their goods overnight from many parts of the UK into a central depot and still achieve next morning deliveries, even with late cut-off times at 6 p.m. In fact, a number of respondents to the discussions we had stated that this could be detrimental. If you site too close to a certain parcel company, it may make it difficult to switch to another company if the quality of the deliveries reduces and they want to move to a different supplier. We undertook a survey, an electronic survey amongst our subscriber base last year in partnership with Savills estate agents, asking what were the most important factors in locating an e-fulfillment centre. And as you can see here, there seems to be a slight difference of opinion between the retailers that included pure retailers, multi-channel guys and manufacturers that sold direct to the logistics providers. The 3PLs, the majority stated that having a facility in close proximity to the transport networks and motorway networks was the most important element, whereas the e-retailers stated that, along with land and lease costs, that having access to available labour force was their most important factor. And you can go through the rest of these if you take the presentation later. As we said before, that the strategies adopted by the e-retailers they differ enormously, and there are many internal, external factors that impact on these, and a number of decisions that the multi-channel guys will have to make in developing their strategies. The first one of these is whether they manage the in-house, they manage the e-fulfillment in-house, or whether they outsource to a third-party logistics provider. The second is where to site these facilities, and we've gone through a few of the factors that impact on that. Then they have to look at the optimum size, the specification, the kit out of the warehouse, what's needed within it to best suit a facility that handles online sales, which are very different from standard facilities. whether to operate a single centre or to operate a network of smaller facilities that are all located closer to the individual customers. That will have the result in duplicating stock and inventory. There's a couple of examples of some of the major, the most important and largest of the multi-channel guys, and how they operate their distribution networks and how they're handling the very different systems and operational requirements for either a multi-channel or an e-fulfillment facility. And you've got to realize that there are very different systems that are needed. Traditional store-based retailing is largely palletized or caged operations. E-fulfillment is single pick, sometimes multiple single picks going to an individual house rather than a store. And to add to the complexity, the fastest growing element is the click and collect. So customers not only need to send to their stores, to the individual's homes, but also small items to stores for customers to collect from there. John Lewis operates a mixed fulfillment strategy. They undertake a lot of their own fulfillment. They also use a number of subcontractors, iForce being one, and DTS for hanging garments. They have a number of distribution networks. Each holds a different category segment of stock. And each of these facilities delivers directly to stores and to the customers themselves. M&S, on the other hand, also operates a number of distribution centres nationally. They operate them all in-house, including hanging garments, but they recently developed a new national DC in Castle Donington, designed to handle slow-moving goods destined for stores and also all of their online goods. Now, this was explained that both of these items are single-picked, so it makes sense and they're easy to put together. A lot of the items delivered to stores aren't single-pick and are palletized and higher volume. Only a couple more to go. This is another one of the questions from the survey. We asked companies, the logistics providers and the retailers, how they viewed the model, the distribution models would change in the future. And again, you can see the difference of attitude between the logistics providers, have to be a bit careful here, and the retailers. A similar sample size agreed that there would continue to be the development of centralized distribution centers handling both a mix of e-commerce and traditional bricks and mortar retail. But by far the biggest proportion of the sample among the retailers thought that actually the market would develop and there would be centralized dedicated e-commerce facilities would be the norm. And as you can see, the 3PLs themselves there seem to think the opposite. There will be a larger number of smaller facilities set up in a network to serve local companies or local customers. Speaking of the 3PLs, it appears that some of the larger of the logistics companies may have recognized the changes in operation between an e-commerce operation and a retail store facility a little late. Most of the companies we spoke to and a lot of the companies that we identified, the multi-channel guys and pure retailers operate their logistics in-house. And we undertook an analysis recently, 20, and Neil knows as well, 20 of the top 20 UK retailers, 18 of them operated their logistics in-house. So there's, at the moment, a bit of a gap between what the e-retailers want and what's been provided from the main 3PLs. I say that a little bit carefully because Mark obviously is operating within this. So the systems are very different from a traditional business, and a lot of the 3PLs haven't invested in developing these systems and solutions and facilities that are specifically designed for an e-commerce solution. It's too early yet to establish whether the retailers will choose to continue to operate in-house. A lot of them may decide that actually having the fulfillment element is as important as having a network of stores and the shelves of those stores. So outsourcing that may be problematic in the future, and they may consider it too core. Others may decide that until a lot of the 3PLs really pick up the pace and start developing the systems they need, that they won't start to outsource. There are, however, a small number of specialist companies, and Neil will talk about these in a minute, who have identified this. They have invested in the systems that are required in the new facilities, and they provide shared user e-fulfillment services, which are ideal for those smaller retailers who are seeing a huge level of growth in their online sales. They can no longer handle those from their existing retail network and are looking for a solution to grow without having to invest in a dedicated e-fulfillment facility.